The Dershow.
We have a process, and the process generally works. And President Trump has, of course, pushed the envelope further than most presidents, not quite as far as Lincoln and Jefferson and Roosevelt, but pretty far. And he tests the Constitution. Now, take, for example, the issue of birthright citizenship. One of the dumbest things any Constitution could ever include. Can you imagine anything dumber than saying you're a citizen of the United States with all the benefits of citizenship if you happen to be born here and then you left 2 weeks later and never had any connections to the country? It's a ridiculous concept. We understand that when you pass constitutional rules, you sometimes have to overstate them to make sure they cover everybody. These was intended to cover the children of slaves. But the Constitution gets, with great inflation, a C+ for draftsmanship. There are so many mistakes in the Constitution, so many errors. Second Amendment filled with problems, the Fourth Amendment filled with problems. Virtually, when you study any part of the Constitution, you say to yourself, how could they have drafted it that way? I have a cartoon that I have hanging in my office, and it has two of the founders. They're writing the Constitution, and they're saying, just for fun, why don't we make what's constitutional and unconstitutional a little wishy-washy? And they did it. They succeeded. It's very, very wishy-washy.
So need
take the
Chat
issue.
GPT, James Madison.
Say that?
Chat GPT, James Madison.
Yeah.
To write.
So take the issue of birthright citizenship. Dumb. But it's in the Constitution. But there's a way to make it smarter. So it involves legislation. The Constitution says that if you're born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, you are a native, natural-born citizen, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That's up to Congress. And Congress can pass a statute very easily saying a baby born in the United States of parents who are illegal, who then leaves in less than 6 months and never comes back, is not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. That would end the issue, and the Supreme Court would uphold that and say, no, they are not citizens of the United States, but it involves legislative action. The same thing is true with national injunctions. Easy to solve that problem. Just have Congress pass a statute saying that when two people under Article 3 of the Constitution litigate against each other, that the impact of the case will not extend beyond the parties at issue, except under principles of stare decisis, etc. Or, more creatively, Congress could enact a new court, much like the FISA court, say consisting of 5 distinguished judges from around the country, 2 district court judges, a circuit court judge, maybe a judge from the Court of Claims, 5 judges like the FISA court. And if you want to get a national injunction, you go to that court. And that court then has jurisdiction to grant a national injunction, subject to immediate appeal to the Supreme Court. For example, the issue that was never really fully discussed during the oral argument, which was a pretty good oral argument, I give that one about a B+. The oral argument was pretty good, but they didn't fully discuss the following issue. There were 4 judges who ruled that the executive order declaring birthright citizenship is unconstitutional. Okay, that's easy. What if there was a 5th judge who said, no, it's completely lawful, and I hereby enjoin anybody who wants to stop this from happening? So you get a conflict between district court judges. How do you enforce a nationwide injunction? So the best way to deal with some of these issues are legislatively. We have 3 branches of government. And right now, the first branch of government, that's Article 1, the Congress, is asleep. And I don't understand the reason for it. They're controlled by both houses are controlled by the party of the president, and they're just doing nothing. And they could be resolving some of these issues to avoid a constitutional crisis. So I think we're going to have an interesting 3.5 years with the president pushing the envelope as far as he can, with the courts pushing back, and with the legislature falling asleep. And we'll see. The court will come down, for example, I know you're going to ask me about it, so I'll anticipate it, on the issue of deportation. We know what the court's going to do, and it's already done it. Monday, yesterday, and Friday. The Supreme Court basically has said, President, you can decide who is allowed to be a citizen of the United States. You get to make the substantive decision as the head of the executive, but you have to do it right. You have to dot every constitutional I and cross every constitutional T, and you have to do it within due process. Now, the most misunderstood term in the Constitution, appears twice in the Constitution, is due process of law. But when you think about it, what it means is obvious. It's the process that is due to you. It's not an abstract, objective term. It's a subjective term that varies with the parties and with what's going on. So if you're a citizen of the United States and you are accused of the crime, for example, of coming over the border illegally or a more serious crime, you get the full panoply of rights. An indictment, right to counsel, privilege against self-incrimination, presumption of innocence, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the process that's due you as a citizen if you are charged with a crime. But if you're a student on a student visa who is being accused of making a speech that is incompatible with the foreign policy of the United States, then the process due you is much, much less. A, you have the right to prove you have a visa, and it's a legitimate visa, because the government might say, no, you don't have a legitimate visa. You have if they say your papers, please, you have a right to show your papers. And then you have a right to dispute what you said, or that you said it, or that you meant it. And so the process due you is much, much slighter, but it's still due process.